Cold air moved along the sidewalk like a thin river. Traffic slowed at the corner, and a bus hissed as it opened its doors near the family shelter. A woman stood by the entrance with a blanket over her shoulders and a small baby pressed to her chest. A caseworker in a bright vest spoke in a gentle voice, but worry sat heavy between them. The baby began to cry, the kind of tired, hungry cry that shakes a parent from the inside. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Please don't take my baby," she said, not loud, but with a fear that made every word shake. People nearby looked away, as if the sound was too personal to hold. He heard it while walking from a late meeting to his car. He was a single father and the head of a company, a man who kept his private life quiet so his little boy could grow up in peace. He paused at the edge of the sidewalk. He told himself not to step in. He had learned that good intentions could cause trouble if handled the wrong way. Still, the baby's cry cut through the cold, and the mother's voice would not leave his chest. He walked closer and waited for a pause. "Is there a way I can help?" he asked the caseworker first. He kept his voice calm and soft. The caseworker turned and gave a cautious smile that said she was thankful but careful. "We are trying to place them for the night," she said. "If we cannot confirm a safe place, we must call for an emergency hold. It is the rule. We do not want to do that." The mother held her baby tighter. "Please," she whispered. Her blanket slipped a little and he saw the tiny hand of the baby reach out from the corner of the cloth, searching. He remembered his own son when he was small, how that little hand would curl around a finger like it was a promise. He had been a widower for 3 years. After his wife passed away, he built his company around small acts that helped parents flex hours, a quiet room for nursing, a child care stipend even when advisors told him it was not standard. Standards had not comforted him in a hospital room at midnight when his son needed him. People had. The caseworker explained the situation in simple steps. The mother had arrived at the shelter late. There were more families than beds. They could give her a warm meal and a place to sit for a while, but not a room. The weather was dropping fast. The baby was too young to stay in a general waiting area overnight. Without a safe room, child services would be called to make a decision. It was not punishment, it was a safety rule. But the rule was a cliff. "How old is the baby?" he asked. 3 months, the mother said, her voice small but clear. "Her name is Lily." He nodded and introduced himself by his first name only. He did not mention his title. He asked the caseworker what would count as safe for tonight. "A hotel room with a working heater," she said, "plus a plan for the morning. We would also like to see the baby tomorrow at a clinic for a check. She sounds congested, and we want to be sure." "I can pay for a room," he said. "And I can cover supplies." He looked at the mother. "Only if you agree." She looked at the caseworker, then back at him. Tears slid down but her chin lifted. "Yes," she said. "Thank you." He called a nearby hotel and asked for a quiet room on a lower floor and a crib if they had one. He explained that it was urgent. He did not use his full name, only a card number. He also called a pharmacy near the hotel and arranged for diapers in 2 sizes, formula, wipes, a bottle brush, and a small humidifier. He asked the caseworker for a short list of what else would truly help. "A prepaid phone," she said, "so we can keep in touch. And a ride to the clinic in the morning." He nodded and sent a text to his assistant to buy a basic phone and meet them at the hotel lobby. He kept the message short, urgent, no questions, receipts in the foundation file. His company had a small foundation for community support. He had set it up after his wife died because he wanted to help people in ways that fit real life, not a press plan. The foundation kept clear records for every dollar so no one could call the help messy or reckless. The caseworker wrote the hotel address on a card and gave it to the mother. He noticed the way her hands shook as she held the pen. "What is your name?" he asked. I am Nadia, she said, brushing the edge of the blanket away from Lily's cheek. We took the bus from the library, she added, as if it explained everything. Maybe it did. Many journeys begin with a short ride from a place with free heat. They set off together, not as a story, just as three people who needed to cross a street. At the hotel door, the warm air felt like a small miracle. The lobby lights were soft and safe. The desk clerk saw the baby and smiled with real relief. We have a crib, she said, and her voice made the room feel even warmer. He finished the paperwork. He kept his details simple. He did not want news to find Nadia before stability did. In the elevator, the baby quieted a little and watched the small world of numbers change above the door. Nadia's eyes shone, but not from tears now, from the strange calm that comes when the next hour is no longer a fog. The room was clean and bright. The heater hummed. He checked the windows and the lock, not because he doubted the hotel, but because he knew a parent's mind at night. Details matter when fear is loud. He stepped out so Nadia could settle Lily on the bed while they waited for the crib. The phone buzzed. His assistant, phone bought. On my way. He replied with the room number and a thank you. Then he texted the clinic he knew, one that took walk-ins and handled children with care. A nurse he trusted answered and gave them a morning time. Bring the mother, too, she wrote. We can check her as well. The door knocked. The assistant came with the small bag and the new phone already charged. She set them on the table, smiled at Nadia, and left without questions. Another knock, the hotel worker rolled in the crib and set it near the bed. Nadia covered it with a soft blanket after checking the safety tag. She moved with care, a mix of new mother caution and learned strength. He showed Nadia the phone and how to reach the caseworker, the clinic, and his assistant if plans changed. He wrote the numbers on a notepad so nothing lived only inside the small screen. He made a simple plan for the morning. He would meet them in the lobby at 8. They would go to the clinic first, then to the shelter office to speak with a social worker, and then to a nonprofit he knew that helped with documents and job leads. He did not promise big things. He promised steps. Nadia sat on the edge of the bed and finally let out a breath. I lost my ID 2 weeks ago, she said. I went to the office, but the line was so long, and I had to feed her. My last job said they will mail my pay, but they asked for the ID copy. I had nothing to give. She lifted her eyes and met his. I am trying, she said, as if she had been on trial all day. I believe you, he said. Tonight is for rest. Tomorrow is for the rest. He thought of his son at home with the sitter, a kind neighbor who made the best hot cocoa. He texted her that he would be a bit late and asked her to tell a bedtime story about a ship that never got lost because its captain asked for help when clouds were thick. He put his phone away and looked around the room with a practical eye. He checked that the humidifier could sit safely on the dresser and ran it for a moment to test it. The soft mist made the air feel kinder. Lily's cry turned into soft coos as Nadia rocked her. Thank you, Nadia said, not like a script, but like a quiet door opening. He nodded. He did not say that he was a CEO or that he had meetings with investors who would not like his way of seeing the world. He did not say that part of him feared the attention that might come if anyone connected him to this night. He did not say that he worried about what his board would think if he made a habit of turning empty buildings into safe rooms. He said only what was needed now. You are not alone tonight. He wrote down a few reminders on his own notepad: call nonprofit director at 7, confirm clinic appointment, prepare a short letter for the shelter office to outline the plan. He wrote another line in a different hand, more personal: be the help he once needed. It was a small promise to himself, but it guided him more than any strategy slide. Outside the window, the city went on with its lights and horns. Inside the room, a tiny world reset. Nadia placed Lily in the crib and watched her settle. She adjusted the blanket and put her hand on her baby's chest for a long moment, feeling the gentle rise and fall that parents measure like time itself. Her shoulders lowered. Some fear left her face. Not all, but enough for a night's sleep. He stood by the door, ready to go so they could rest. "We meet at 8, he said. "If you need anything before then, call the desk and they will reach me." Nadia nodded. "I will be here," she said. "I will be ready." He stepped into the hallway and closed the door with care. The quiet felt like a good thing. He walked to the elevator and pressed the button. As he waited, he looked at his reflection in the glossy doors. He saw not a headline or a balance sheet, but a father who could not walk past a small voice. The elevator opened. He took out his phone and sent one more message, this time to the director of a partner nonprofit, "Early meeting tomorrow. Possible short-term housing plan. Need your best ideas." A reply came at once, "We'll be there." He rode down to the lobby and paused by the front desk to make sure the room had meal vouchers for the morning. The clerk nodded and added them with a bright sticker. "Your guests are all set," she said. He thanked her and stepped out to the street. The cold met him again, but it felt softer now, like a long breath rather than a wall. On the walk to his car, he thought about how easy it would have been to look away. He thought about rules and about the space between rules where people live. He knew that help had to be more than one night. It had to be a bridge to a place that would not slip away. He unlocked the car and sat for a moment before starting it. He pictured his son asleep, one hand always thrown over the pillow. He pictured Lily's small hand reaching out from the blanket and finding, this time, something steady to hold. The engine turned over. He made one last call, to leave a message for the caseworker who had started it all with patience and care. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. "I will bring a written plan in the morning." He hung up and pulled into the slow river of lights. He did not know all the steps yet. He knew only this: he would not walk away. Tonight, a door had opened. Tomorrow, he would help build the hallway beyond it. Morning light slid through the hotel curtains in a thin line. The heater hummed, and the room smelled faintly of soap from the tiny bottles by the sink. Nadia woke first, because that is what mothers do. She checked Lily's chest with her hand and felt the soft, steady rise and fall. The baby's nose sounded a little stuffy, but the humidifier helped. For a long moment, Nadia just watched her sleep and tried to let the quiet sink in. It felt like standing in a doorway with the storm behind her, even if the road ahead was still unknown. He arrived at 8, as promised, with a paper bag that held oat muffins and bananas. He knocked softly, then waited so he would not startle the baby. Nadia opened the door in a clean hotel robe, her blanket folded on a chair. "Good morning," he said. "We have a plan." He spoke in simple steps, the way a coach draws a line from one point to the next. First the clinic. Then the shelter office. Then the nonprofit center for documents and job leads. They would also stop at the phone store to add minutes to the new phone and turn on location sharing with the caseworker so no one would worry. The clinic sat 2 blocks from a small park inside. A nurse with kind eyes listened to Lily's chest and checked her ears. "Mild congestion," she said. "No fever, lungs clear." She showed Nadia how to use saline drops and how to steam the bathroom a little before bedtime. She also checked Nadia's own health and gave her vitamins. "You're doing well," the nurse said. Nadia's shoulders eased. He watched the way a plain sentence changed a person's day. At the front desk, the clinic worker printed a note for the caseworker: "Lily examined, stable, no emergency." He tucked the note into a folder, along with receipts and a short list of next steps. He kept the folder like a shield against doubt. He had learned that when people have papers, doors open a bit faster. At the shelter office, they met the caseworker from the night before. Her vest hung on the back of her chair and a fresh cup of tea sat near her keyboard. She smiled at Lily and waved at Nadia. "You made it," she said. "That's a good start." Then she went over the rules and the path towards stable housing. "We need a valid ID for you, proof of the baby's care, a plan for income, and a safe place to stay for at least 2 weeks," she said. "We can help with some of it. But we need your help with the rest." Nadia explained that her ID had been stolen. The caseworker nodded, she heard this story many times. "We can start the replacement," she said. "We'll need your birth date, your last address, and if you have it, any mail with your name on it. If not, we can try a sworn statement." Nadia did not have any mail. "We will still try," the caseworker said. She typed a note and printed a form. "There is also the matter of your last pay," the caseworker added. "If we can show expected wages, it helps with the plan." "I called last week," Nadia said. "They said the check is in the mail, but it never came." He listened and then asked for the name of the employer. He stepped to the side and made a quick call. He kept his voice steady and polite. "We're trying to confirm a missing final check for a former worker named Nadia," he said. "We want to help her get stable housing for her and her baby." The person on the other end put him on hold. He watched the clock and thought about how long 5 minutes can feel when your whole life sits on a desk somewhere. The manager came on the line. "We mailed the check," she said. "It came back marked undeliverable, so it's here in the office." He asked if Nadia could pick it up with a new ID receipt and a caseworker's letter. The manager agreed. He wrote down the address and thanked her. Small wins like this were steps on a bridge. Next, they went to the nonprofit center. The room was bright, with posters about training programs for office work, retail, and home care. A volunteer with gray hair and quick hands helped Nadia fill out a new ID application. He scanned her baby's birth record from the hospital packet, which Nadia had kept safe in her bag. He also wrote a letter confirming that she was working with the center. "This helps when you talk to landlords or training programs," he said. The nonprofit director met them in a small office with a plant in the window. She knew him from past projects and greeted him with a handshake that felt like teamwork. "We can do a 2-week sprint," she said after listening to the plan. "Daycare vouchers, a training slot 3 mornings a week, and a counselor for stress. We'll also assign a case manager to follow up daily." She printed a schedule and a short contract. Nadia read every line carefully and signed. The director turned to him. "We'll send all receipts to your foundation, and you stay out of the way unless we ask," she said, half joking, half serious. He smiled and nodded. Boundaries make good help better. At noon, they stopped for soup at a small cafe. Lily slept in her carrier beside the table. Nadia held the spoon as if a bowl of soup could be a ceremony. "I did not expect this," she said finally. "Not the soup," she added with a small smile. "All of it?" He stirred his tea. "It works because you're doing the hard part," he said. "You show up. You sign the forms. You keep caring for Lily. I can help build the path, but you do the walking." She looked down with quiet pride. His phone buzzed. It was his assistant with a message: "Board member wants to talk. Says urgent." He stepped outside to take the call. The board member spoke in a cool voice that sounded like marble. "We're hearing chatter about a personal project," the board member said. "If you're using company resources for private aid, it's a risk. Investors will ask questions." He kept his voice even. "Everything runs through my foundation, with receipts," he said. "No company funds, no company staff beyond one off-hours errand, and we have a firewall." The board member paused. "You know how this looks if it becomes a story," he said. "A CEO plays hero." He looked through the cafe window at Nadia, who was lifting Lily's hat to check her hair. "I'm not playing," he said. I'm helping a mother keep her baby safe. If investors ask, tell them I know the difference between charity and governance. The board member sighed. We'll discuss at the next meeting. The call ended with a silence that said this was not over. Back inside, he kept the mood light. He showed Nadia how to use the new phone to send locations and save important numbers. They tested the call to the caseworker and the nonprofit. They also saved the clinic's number and the hotel front desk. Nadia practiced until her hands stopped shaking. A small laugh escaped when Lily made a soft hiccup noise that sounded like a tiny "oh." The moment felt like sunshine. They headed to the city office to process the ID request. The line wrapped around a yellow tape line on the floor. Babies make time different, so he walked Lily around so Nadia could sit. The screen above the counter changed numbers slowly, like a clock learning to count. After an hour, they reached the clerk, who asked for documents with a tired but not unkind voice. Nadia handed over the forms, the hospital record, and the nonprofit letter. The clerk typed, then frowned. We need one more piece of proof of address from the last 6 months, she said. A bill or a letter? Nadia's eyes fell. She had none. He leaned in. Is there an alternative path? He asked. The clerk thought, then nodded. A sworn statement plus a caseworker letter can work, but it needs a supervisor sign-off, she said. That can take a few days. A few days was a canyon in a plan built hour by hour. He asked if the caseworker could email right now and if they could start the process while the letter arrived. The clerk agreed to hold the file open for 72 hours. She stamped a small receipt that acted as a temporary reference. Keep this safe, she said. Nadia held it like it was made of glass. They left with mixed feelings, progress, but also a new weight. Next stop was the employer's office to retrieve the check. The receptionist welcomed them and asked for ID. Nadia showed the temporary receipt and the nonprofit letter. The manager came out and greeted them politely. We have your check, she said, but company policy needs a valid ID for pickup. He explained the receipt and the caseworker letter on the way. The manager thought, then said, if your caseworker emails me to confirm identity and we make a copy of the documents, we can release it. He called the caseworker, who replied fast. 10 minutes later, the manager handed over a check inside a plain envelope. Nadia blinked hard and looked at her baby. This will help us, she whispered. It was not an answer to everything, but it was a door that opened. By late afternoon, the nonprofit director called with news. We have a transitional apartment lined up, she said. It's small but safe, and it's for mothers with infants. If we can get Nadia in by tomorrow or the next day, Child Services will see stable housing in place. Hope filled the room like music. Nadia covered her mouth with her hand. He felt a tightness in his chest ease, just a little. What do you need from us? He asked. Basic paperwork, the director said. ID confirmation, the clinic note, the case plan, and a reference. With your foundation support letter, we can move quickly. They rushed to gather the documents. He wrote a short support letter from the foundation, careful to keep it factual and avoid glowing language. The nonprofit emailed the housing manager. For an hour, everything felt aligned. Then the director called again, and her voice sounded different. There's a problem, she said. The housing manager says the unit must go to a mother who already has a state ID on file. The variance they're using for quick placements requires that. They can't accept the 72-hour receipt. They're sorry. The quiet in the hotel room felt heavy, like wet cloth. Nadia stared at the crib, then at the ceiling. I understand, she said, though she did not. He closed his eyes for a second and breathed out. We will find another path, he said. He opened his folder and moved through the pages like a pilot checking gauges. We have the clinic note, the nonprofit contract, the wage check, he said. Tomorrow, we'll get the caseworker letter for the ID, and we'll call the other housing options. He sent messages to 2 more programs he knew, asking for any open family units. He also reached out to a church network that sometimes covered short-term stays for parents with infants. His phone buzzed again. This time it was an investor whose name lived in newspapers. "I'm hearing about your side project," the investor said, casual but sharp. "You're a single father with a company to run. Don't make yourself a story." He kept his tone level. "I am making a process," he said. "I'm moving this entirely into my foundation with outside oversight. No company risk." The investor paused. "Investors don't like surprises," he said. "Keep your eyes on the road." "I am," he said, and ended the call before frustration could leak into his voice. He turned to Nadia and told her the truth in simple words. "We had a near win, and it slipped. It happens. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow we try again." Nadia nodded. She picked up Lily, who had begun to fuss, and held her close. "I can do tomorrow," she said. The sentence was small and strong. Evening drew a line across the window. He ordered a warm meal delivered to the room and asked for extra soup because tired bodies need easy food. He checked the humidifier, set the crib, and made sure the phone charges were in place. He wrote out the morning plan in clear steps on the notepad again, with times beside each one: 7:30 caseworker letter, 8:15 travel to office, 9:30 call 2 housing programs, 11 o'clock training intake, noon childcare voucher pickup, 2 o'clock employer bank to cash check with caseworker present if needed. Before he left, he paused at the door. "You kept going all day," he said. "That is not small." Nadia looked up, tired but steady. "I kept going because you kept the path clear," she said. "It feels less like a maze and more like a road." He smiled. "Roads we can drive," he said. "Mazes we break." He stepped out into the hallway and called the nonprofit director one more time. "If the ID is the hinge," he said, "let's push it open. Can we get a supervisor to sign tonight if the caseworker emails now?" The director promised to try. He also texted the clinic nurse to ask if she could write a short note about safe sleep and care to include in the file. Little things matter when big doors refuse to move. He walked through the lobby and into the evening air. The city sounded softer than last night. He knew the pressure would increase tomorrow. He also knew that plans, when written carefully and held with care, can outlast a setback. He put his phone in his pocket and thought about his own son, who would be home from school by now, sitting with crayons and drawing ships and stars. He would get there soon. Tonight, he had one more call to make to the city office that handles building codes. An idea had been circling his mind all day, quiet but persistent, like a bird looking for a place to land. If it could land, it might turn a vacant space into a small harbor. But that would be tomorrow's test. For now, he chose the simplest plan: keep his promise. No cameras, no speeches, just steps. He ordered a car for the morning, sent the schedule to everyone who needed it, and added one new line at the bottom of his notes: "If one door closes, bring a toolbox." Then he drove home, steady hands on the wheel, carrying the shape of a new path in his mind. Night came down with a hush, but the hush did not last. Near midnight, Lily's breathing turned fast and warm. Nadia woke to the heat in her baby's cheeks and a sound that was not the soft snuffle of sleep. She touched Lily's forehead and felt the kind of heat that makes a mother's heart grab tight. She tried the saline drops and held Lily near the humidifier. The baby whimpered and pressed her face against Nadia's neck. Nadia checked the time and stared at the hotel phone. Fear told her to wait. Love told her to act. She dialed the front desk and asked them to connect her to him. His phone buzzed on the bedside table beside a half-read book. He picked up at the first ring. Nadia's voice was steady but thin. "She is very warm," she said. He did not waste words. I'm on my way, he said. He pulled on jeans and a coat, grabbed his keys, and left a note for his sitter in case his son woke and asked for him. The drive felt longer than the map said. Street lights glowed like slow stars. He parked and ran inside with quiet feet. In the room, Lily's cry was a small, hoarse sound. He touched the back of his hand to her forehead and felt the heat. We're going to the ER, he said, calm as if each word was a step down a safe stair. He called the clinic nurse on the way and left a message. He carried the baby while Nadia grabbed the hospital packet and the phone. The elevator hummed like a lullaby trying its best. In the car, he turned the heat soft and steady and drove like the road was a long line of careful choices. The emergency room smelled like disinfectant and tired hope. A triage nurse looked up, saw the baby, and waved them forward. How old? 3 months, Nadia said. Fever started an hour ago. The nurse took Lily's temperature and oxygen level, then nodded. Moderate fever. Lungs sound a little tight, but no alarm. We'll check her quickly. They waited in a curtained bay. The sounds around them were small dramas, each with its own beat: the beep of a monitor, a whispered prayer, a chair scraping the floor. He sat on the edge of the chair with Lily in his arms so Nadia could rest her back. He did not tell her to calm down or be brave. He told her what the screen said, what the nurse said, what the next step would be. Facts are a hand to hold. A young doctor with kind eyes listened to Lily's chest, checked her ears, and asked questions with respect. Likely a virus, she said. We'll give a small dose of fever medicine, some saline, and we'll watch her for a short while. Keep the humidifier running, feed smaller amounts more often, and sleep her on her back. She printed a sheet of clear instructions and, at his request, wrote a note for the case file: infant examined, parent attentive, no concerns of neglect, follow up at clinic tomorrow. Nadia read that line twice, as if the words had weight that could hold her up. He paid at the window and kept the receipt with the rest. At the car, Lily's breathing sounded a little easier. Nadia stroked her tiny hand and whispered a thank you that held the whole night inside it. Back at the hotel, he steadied the crib and set the humidifier where the mist could reach. He taped the doctor's instructions to the wall above the nightstand so no one would lose them in the morning shuffle. Call me if anything changes, he said. I will, Nadia said. Her voice was tired, but not alone. He returned home near dawn and lay down for an hour. When he rose, the city looked washed and new. He made pancakes for his son and drew a map on a napkin: school, a playdate, and later, a silly movie. He kissed his boy's head and told him he would be home for bedtime. Then he picked up his folder and went back into the day. At 9, he met the nonprofit director at a building his company had owned for years, a clean, sturdy place that had been empty since a lease ended. The lobby smelled faintly of fresh paint. Sunlight made squares on the floor. An architect he trusted arrived with a clipboard. Sprinklers are up to code, she said after a walkthrough. 2 exits per floor. Accessible bathrooms. We'd need to add simple kitchenettes to 2 rooms and install door alarms, but the bones are good. He listened with the focused face he used in product reviews, but this time the product was shelter. They stood in a room with a wide window and a steady radiator ticking like a small clock. He pictured a crib by the wall, a chair for a parent to sit in at night, a small table for a bottle and a phone. Could we do 2 family units as a pilot, he asked. The architect nodded. Yes, if the city grants a short-term variance to use part of the building for residential purposes. The nonprofit director spoke up. We would staff it, she said. An on-site social worker, cameras in the hallways, clear rules, and a 30-day limit so we move families into permanent housing. We track outcomes. We publish the data. We keep dignity first. He thought about the line he had written the night before: if one door closes, Bring a toolbox. This was a whole toolbox. He called the city housing office and asked for a meeting with the deputy commissioner and a building inspector. His name opened a door, but the ask was still hard. A variance in 48 hours, the deputy said, sounding cautious. We would need fire, health, and zoning to sign off, and we'd need an operating partner. We have the partner, he said, handing the phone to the nonprofit director so she could speak for herself. He added his pledge: the foundation would pay for upgrades, an independent auditor would review spending, and an oversight board with community members would meet weekly during the pilot. The deputy did not promise anything on the phone, but she did agree to a same-day visit. They hung up and looked at each other as if they had jumped and found a ledge. If the city says yes, he said, we can move 2 families in within a week. The director nodded. Nadia first, she said gently. He nodded once. Nadia first. He stopped at the hotel on the way back to the office. Lily's fever had fallen. Nadia had circled the next steps on the notepad and was ready. We have a new option, he said. He explained the idea of the short-term family units. It's not a forever home, he said. It's a safe place while you build toward one. Nadia listened with both ears and both hands on her baby's back. I will follow the rules, she said. I will do the work. He believed her. He had seen the way she showed up for every hard thing. By early afternoon, the deputy commissioner arrived with a small team, a building inspector with a laser measure, a fire lieutenant with a checklist, and a zoning officer with a thick binder. They walked the hallways with eyes that saw both risk and possibility. We'd need smoke detectors in these rooms and alarms on these doors, the fire lieutenant said. We can install by Friday if you order today. The inspector ran her hand along a railing and nodded. Handrails are secure. Windows open smoothly. Egress clear. The zoning officer flipped pages and muttered dates to himself, then lifted his head. Given the emergency need and the time-limited pilot, I can recommend a temporary variance if health signs off, he said. The nonprofit director had already called health. A nurse supervisor arrived and reviewed the plan for cleaning, laundry, and safe sleep. If the operating partner keeps a log and a nurse visits twice a week, we can sign, she said. He stood a little straighter. It felt like watching a bridge grow, section by section, under careful hands. He called the foundation lawyer and asked for a short, clean memorandum of understanding. The nonprofit would operate the units, the foundation would fund upgrades and staffing, an independent accountant would track spending, the company would not be a party to the agreement. The lawyer promised a draft by evening. He called a security firm to install cameras in common areas and asked for a quote with a discount for community benefit. They agreed without fuss. When the work is clear, many people say yes. Word travels fast in cities made of glass and screens. By late afternoon, his phone lit up with a message from a journalist he recognized. We hear you're converting an office for homeless families, the message read. On or off the record? He closed his eyes for a second. He had wanted to keep this quiet until families slept inside and not on paper. He typed a careful reply, off the record for now. This is a partnership led by a nonprofit. I'll connect you to their director when we're ready. The goal is safety and speed, not a story. He pressed send and hoped the words would hold. They did not. A different message popped up, not from a reporter but from a board member, and the tone was a hammer wrapped in silk. An email outlining a building conversion was forwarded to me, it read. We need to discuss governance and risk. Performance review moved up to Friday. He felt the floor tilt a little under his feet. He put the phone in his pocket and looked around the empty room again. The radiator ticked. Sunlight made its square on the wall. He thought about his son's face when he solved a puzzle he'd been working on for days. The tilt in his chest steadied. He called the board chair before the chair could call him. I moved the project to my foundation, he said. No company funds, no staff, no brand. The nonprofit will operate it, and an independent oversight committee will meet weekly. I will recuse from any company decisions related to the building during the pilot. You'll have the paperwork by tonight. The chair listened. You're still the public face of this company, she said. If this goes wrong, it lands on us. He kept his voice even. If a baby sleeps safely and a mother keeps her child, it will have gone right, he said. And we will have done it with rules, not noise. The chair did not agree, but she did not hang up angry. Send the documents, she said. Friday, we talk. He went back to the hotel to share the progress with Nadia. He told her about the building, the city's visit, the next steps, and the oversight plan. He also told her the part that was harder to say, the leak, the review, the way people in suits worry. Nadia listened like someone who had talked to fear many times and learned how to keep walking while it spoke. People will say things, she said quietly. They say things about mothers who ask for help, too. But help still helps. He smiled with one side of his mouth. Yes, he said. Help still helps. They spread the papers on the small table, the ER note, the clinic follow-up appointment, the nonprofit schedule, the ID receipt, the wage check envelope. He slid a new page across to Nadia. It was a simple plan written in clear lines: parenting class twice a week, training 3 mornings, counseling once a week, daily check-ins with the case manager. This is your path, he said. Will you walk it? Nadia took a breath and signed her name with a firm line. I will, she said. The room felt bigger. Before he left, he stood by the crib and watched Lily sleep for a moment. Her fever had eased, and her breaths were small and even, each one a quiet count. He thought of all the metrics he had tracked in his career: users, revenue, churn, growth, and how sometimes the most important number is one. One crib. One mother. One room that is safe. On the drive home, his hands were steady on the wheel, but his mind ran like a careful engine. He made a list in his head: order the smoke detectors, sign the security contract, approve the kitchenette plan, send the memorandum to the board, loop the auditor, schedule the oversight meeting, confirm with the deputy commissioner, keep the nonprofit in the lead, call the clinic nurse with thanks. He reached a red light and looked up at the sky where the first evening star had slipped into place. It looked like a small point that knew exactly what it was. His phone buzzed once more. This time it was his son's drawing, texted by the sitter: a house with 2 doors and 2 small windows and, in the sky, a big sun. Under it, his son had written 3 words in a wobbly hand: home is safe. He laughed softly and felt his chest warm. He sent back a heart and a promise: home by 8, movie night, extra popcorn. When he pulled into his driveway, he checked the time for Friday's review and put it on his calendar between install alarms and call health department. He did not know what the board would decide. He did know what he would do tomorrow: keep going. The turning point had arrived in the smallest of ways: a hot forehead in the night, a nurse's calm, a room with a window, a city official willing to come see for herself. From here on, the path would be harder and more public. But the shape of it was clear. Build a system that holds, one careful choice at a time. And do not walk away. The morning of the hearing began the way big days often do: too early and very quiet. Nadia fed Lily in the half-light and checked the fever with the small thermometer the nurse had given her. The number was lower. Lily's eyes were bright again. Nadia kissed her forehead and whispered a promise that sounded like a prayer but was really a plan: today we show them we are ready. He arrived with a folder thicker than yesterday's. He had slept a little, then woke to read every line again. Inside the folder were the ER note, the clinic instructions, the nonprofit schedule, the ID receipt, the wage check copy, and a new document: the city's intent to grant letter for a temporary variance on 2 rooms in the vacant building. The letter was not the final approval, but it said the city would sign once smoke detectors were installed and the nurse supervisor logged the first inspection. He also carried a short memorandum from his foundation's lawyer: the nonprofit would run the rooms, the foundation would fund upgrades, independent oversight would meet weekly, his company was not a party. He laid the folder on the hotel table. Nadia ran her hand over the cover as if she could feel strength through paper. The nonprofit case manager, a calm woman with a warm laugh, joined them with her own binder. "We'll walk in with facts," she said. "We'll speak clearly. And we will not guess. If we don't know an answer, we say we'll find out." They dressed simply. Nadia wore a clean blouse from the donation room that fit like confidence. He wore the kind of suit that looked ordinary unless you knew its price. He left the jacket open so he wouldn't look like a wall. At the door, he checked the list again: clinic note, check copy, ID receipt, foundation letter, city letter, nonprofit plan, daily log template, contact numbers. He slipped a pen behind his ear like a carpenter who knew every measure mattered. The agency office sat on the third floor of a building where the hallways smelled like coffee and printer toner. Signs on the walls spoke in kind rules: please check in. Please be patient. Please be kind. At the desk, a clerk took their names. "You'll be in room 3, she said. "The hearing officer will see you at 10. He thanked her. Nadia held Lily close and counted her breaths to pass the minutes. In the waiting area, the caseworker from the first night waved them over. "I'll present the history," she said softly. "Then you'll each have a chance to speak." The guardian ad litem, a lawyer assigned to speak for the baby's best interest, arrived with a small, polite nod. He had a narrow notebook and a pen that clicked too loudly for such a quiet room. He had visited the hotel that morning and watched Nadia change Lily's diaper, prepare a bottle, and keep a careful eye on the clock. He had written more than he had said. At 10, they entered a room made to look less like a courtroom and more like an office, but papers still held weight there. The hearing officer sat at one end of a long table. She wore a blue sweater and the kind of glasses that made her eyes look bigger than they were. Her voice was even. "We're here to consider the safety plan for Lily," she said. "Thank you all for coming." The caseworker began. She spoke in clear, short lines: "A mother arrived after shelter hours, there were no beds, emergency hold was possible, an outside helper paid for a hotel, the mother followed through with clinic care, the baby's fever was handled, there is now a proposed short-term housing plan." She did not add drama. She did not hide stress. She finished with the truth that sat between them: we need a stable, supervised place for mother and infant within days. Without it, our rules require removal. The hearing officer turned to the nonprofit director. "Your plan?" she asked. The director slid the printed schedule across the table. "2 supervised units in a building the city has preliminarily cleared, operated by our organization," she said. "Door alarms, smoke detectors, cameras in halls only, on-site social worker, nurse checks twice a week. 30-day limit with a move toward permanent housing. Daily logs signed by the mother and staff. Parenting class twice a week. Training 3 mornings a week. Counseling weekly. We will file weekly reports to your office and to an independent oversight group." The officer studied the paper like a map. "Funding?" she asked. He spoke then, with careful breath. "My foundation will fund the pilot," he said. "Not my company. We have a signed memorandum that keeps all boundaries clear. An independent auditor will track every expense. If the city withdraws permission, the rooms close. No shortcuts. No headlines planned." He slid the memorandum forward. The officer read the first page and nodded for the rest. The agency attorney, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. "What happens if the building is not ready by Friday?" she asked. "And who is the 2 a.m. call if the baby spikes a fever again?" No one moved. He had expected this. If a contractor misses a deadline, the foundation will extend the hotel for the shortest safe period, he said. For health concerns, the mother calls the nurse line listed in the plan, and the on-site social worker. I am a secondary contact, and I will answer. He did not say that he had already put the nurse line in his own phone favorites. He didn't need to. His voice said it. The attorney turned to Nadia with a softened face. Miss Nadia, would you tell us about last month? She asked. Nadia took a breath and sat up straight. I left a shared room because it was not safe, she said, choosing each word like a measured step. I tried to go back the next day, but there was no bed left. My ID was taken from my bag. I kept the hospital papers safe because they had Lily's name. I fed her on time. I went to the library during the day to stay warm and to look up places to go. I did not ask for help the first night because I was scared it would mean losing her. That was a mistake. I am not hiding now. I am here with a plan. She opened the binder the case manager had helped her make. Inside were receipts for formula, a printed phone log, the clinic note, and a paper with a simple title, What I Will Do This Month. The list was not dramatic. It said, wake at 6:30, feed at 7, class at 9 twice a week, training 3 mornings, laundry on Friday, call case manager every day at 5, lights out at 9 unless baby needs me, Sunday walk in the sun if the weather is kind. It sounded like small things. The room felt how big small things are. The guardian ad litem clicked his pen once, then caught himself and folded his hands. I visited at the hotel this morning, he said. The infant is attached to the mother. The mother responds promptly to cues, uses the humidifier correctly, and follows clinic guidance. The mother has a gap, a missing ID and no local family support, but she is cooperating with services fully. My recommendation is supervised reunification with conditions, housing in the supervised unit, attendance at class and training, weekly oversight, and follow-up medical care. Removal is not necessary if the plan is real. The hearing officer wrote for a long time. The scratch of her pen sounded like rain. At last, she looked up. I'll take a brief recess to review the documents and call the city to confirm the timeline, she said. Then I will return with a decision. She stood and left through a side door, the kind that closes slowly, as if the room needs time to exhale. In the pause, his phone buzzed. It was a message from the board chair, performance review moved to 3 p.m. today. Agenda includes use of executive time and reputational risk. He stared at the words and felt that small tilt again. The nonprofit director raised an eyebrow not at him, but at the timing. We'll cover you, she whispered. You go when you must. He shook his head. I'll stay until the decision, he said. Then I'll go. Nadia watched the exchange with a steady face. Do what you must, she said. I will do the same. The hearing officer returned with 2 pages and a careful tone. Before I speak, I need to confirm one point, she said, turning to the nonprofit director. Can you have staffing on site the first night the unit opens? Yes, the director said. We have a social worker on rotation who can start tonight if needed. The officer nodded. Thank you. I'll deliver my decision after one more verification. She stood again. Another slow door. More careful air. He used the minutes to make 2 calls. First to the contractor, alarms today. Kitchenettes by Thursday. Send me photos when each step finishes. Then to his foundation lawyer, oversight committee names, add the nurse supervisor and a community elder. Send the final memo to the board and to the city before noon. He ended both calls with the same sentence, thank you for moving fast and clean. When the hearing officer came back, everyone sat a little straighter without meaning to. She placed her papers on the table, lined up the edges, and folded her hands. Her eyes were kind but firm. The room went very still. Before she could speak, the clerk knocked and slipped in with a note. The officer read it, nodded, and tucked it under the file. "Apologies," she said. "We are also people in this building." A small smile crossed her face and was gone. She looked at Nadia first. "You have been honest," she said, "and that helps more than you know." She looked at him next. "You have offered support in a structured way, which is rare and useful." She looked at the nonprofit director. "You have a plan with clear lines and clear ends." Then she looked down at her papers again, and the room filled with the soft hum of the air vent and the tiny creak of someone's chair. "I will issue my decision in writing within the hour," she said. "You will receive it at the front desk. Please wait outside." The words landed like a held breath. Not yes. Not no. Not yet. They stepped into the hall. The door closed with that same soft patience. Inside, a decision was getting its final shape. Outside, life continued to tap its toe. The case manager handed Nadia a cup of water. He leaned against the wall and let the paint cool the back of his suit. His phone buzzed again. "The board chair, do not be late." He typed back, "I'll be on time." They sat on a bench beneath a framed poster about kindness. Lily slept in Nadia's arms, her hands in fists that opened and closed without waking. He thought of all the meetings he had sat through in his life and how this hallway felt like the most important one, even though it had no PowerPoint and no pastries. Nadia spoke without looking up. "I used to think help was a door that someone opens for you," she said. "Now I think help is a hallway with many doors. You have to walk it with people." He nodded. "And sometimes you have to build a door," he said. "With a screwdriver someone lends you." A clerk called their names. "The decision will be ready soon," she said. Her smile was careful. "You can pick it up at the desk." Soon. A word that can weigh more than a minute. He checked his watch. If the paper came in 10 minutes, he could still make it across town for the board review. If it took 20, he would run. He pictured the boardroom, a long table, a screen, faces that knew how to count, voices that knew how to caution. He pictured the building they were preparing, a small room, a crib, a door with a new alarm that would chime gently when it opened. He understood both worlds. He knew which one mattered in his bones. The nonprofit director tapped her binder and looked at Nadia. "No matter what the paper says," she said, "we will keep working this plan. We will keep you and Lily safe." Nadia nodded. "I'll be there," she said. "Class at 9. Training at 11. I will show up and keep showing up." She looked at him then, and her eyes were clear. "Go face your people," she said, a small smile on her mouth. "I will face mine." He breathed out. "When this paper comes," he said gently, "call me." Nadia lifted the phone that lay on the bench beside her. "I already put your name at the top," she said. The case manager laughed softly. "Smart," she said. They waited. The clock on the wall moved one notch. Then another. The door to room 3 opened and closed for someone else. Somewhere, a copier started and stopped. At last, the clerk lifted a small stack of papers from a tray and looked up. "Room 3, she called. "Decision is ready." They stood. The moment did not feel loud. It felt like stepping onto a thin bridge and feeling it hold or sway. He looked at Nadia and at Lily, who slept on, unaware of how many adults were holding their breaths for her. He put his phone in his pocket and straightened his jacket. He was ready to accept whatever words sat on that paper, and then he was ready to work with them. Either way, the next step was the same: do the next right thing, clean and steady. They walked to the desk together. The clerk slid the envelope forward. The seal was simple. The air was still. 2 decisions waited for him that day, one in this envelope and one at a long table across town. He pressed his palm against the paper for a second, feeling the thin heat of fresh ink. Then he looked at Nadia and nodded. "Shall we?" he said. He broke the seal on the envelope with a steady hand. The paper inside was 2 pages, clipped at the corner. He read the first line and then passed it to Nadia so she could see it herself. The decision used careful words, but the meaning was clear. The agency would not remove Lily. The mother and baby would remain together under a supervised plan. The plan named the nonprofit as the operator, listed the rules for the new rooms, and set weekly check-ins, classes, and nurse visits. It also named a simple truth: the safest place for a cared-for infant is with a caring parent. Nadia read the first paragraph twice. Her mouth opened as if to speak, then closed, then opened again. She did not cry at first. She took a long breath and pressed the paper to her chest, as if she could warm it, as if the ink could warm her back. Then the tears came, soft and grateful. She kissed Lily's forehead and whispered, "We are going home," though the home was a small room they had not seen yet. He nodded. "We are going to a safe door," he said. It felt like the right word. There were signatures at the bottom. There was also a start date, as soon as the rooms were cleared. The hearing officer shook their hands in the hallway and said, "We will watch with care. Keep your logs. Keep your promises." Nadia promised in a voice that did not wobble. He promised too, with fewer words but equal weight. He checked the time and saw that the hour had turned. The board review was waiting across town. He handed the folder to the nonprofit director and said, "I will meet you at the building after 3. If the alarms are in by then, we can move tonight." Nadia looked at him and understood. "Go," she said. "I will meet the case manager and sign the intake papers." She lifted the decision again like a lantern. "We will be there." The boardroom felt like another country after the agency hall. Glass windows, long table, water bottles in a neat row. The chair opened the meeting with measured words. "We are here to discuss governance and time use," she said. "There are concerns about risk." He listened, then stood and talked through the plan the way he would talk through a product: who owns it, who runs it, how it is measured, what happens if something fails. He showed the foundation memorandum, the oversight committee list, and the city's letter. He did not ask for praise. He asked for clarity. "If my presence as day-to-day leader creates a shadow over this, I will step back," he said. "I will take a non-executive role and let the crew run operations. It will protect the company and keep this pilot honest." Silence followed, the kind that tests whether a sentence is real. The chair looked at the others, then back at him. "This is not a punishment," she said. "It's a line." He nodded. "I like lines," he said. "They keep things from spilling." The vote moved fast, as votes do when the path is clear. He would step out of daily operations for the length of the pilot, keep a seat on the board, and serve as an advisor. The company would continue its work. The pilot would continue its work. Both would be watched. Boundaries in ink. He left the meeting lighter than he expected. Loss can feel like wind in the right direction when it is chosen. He drove to the building and found the contractor on a ladder, fixing a detector to the ceiling. The fire lieutenant stood nearby with a clipboard, checking each room. The nurse supervisor carried a small kit and a gentle authority. The social worker taped a welcome note to the wall: "Simple house rules, friendly and firm." A security camera in the hallway blinked its first quiet light. Progress did not shout. It clicked and hummed and made a soft tone when a door opened and closed. By evening, the city emailed the signed variance. He printed it and put it in a clear sleeve, then hung it on a wall by the door, not to show off, but so anyone could point to it if there were questions. The nonprofit director called Nadia. "Bring Lily and your bag," she said. "We'll meet you downstairs." Nadia arrived in a coat that was a little too thin for the air. She held Lily like a bundle of light and stepped into the lobby with careful eyes. He led them to the small room with the big window. The radiator ticked its soft, steady tick. A new crib stood by the wall with a clean sheet tucked tight. A chair waited for late-night feeds. A small table held a lamp, a clock, and the binder that would become their daily log. The social worker walked through the room with Nadia, showing her where to store diapers, where to place the phone charger, how the door alarm would make a soft chime if it opened at night. "It's not a siren," the social worker said with a smile. "It's a reminder that we are here, even when you are tired." They signed the intake papers. He watched Nadia write her name in slow, even letters. The pen did not shake now. Lily stretched and let out a small sound like a question. Nadia answered by tucking a blanket around her and humming a line of a song she remembered from before all this. The room felt like calm on purpose. He stepped back so the space could belong to them. On his way out, he paused at the door. "I'll be nearby for the first night while the staff settles in," he said to the director. She nodded. "We've got it," she said. "Go home to your son. We'll call if we need you." He looked at Nadia, who had knelt by the crib to check the sheet corners one more time. "Good night," he said. "Good night," she said, and the two words felt richer than usual. Days found a rhythm. Morning check-ins. Class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Training 3 mornings a week with a kind instructor who spoke plainly about goals and pay stubs and what to do if a bus ran late. The counselor met Nadia once a week and helped her turn worry into steps. The case manager called at 5 each day and wrote one line in the log: "Showed up, steady." The nurse visited and showed Nadia a better way to hold the bottle when Lily's nose felt stuffy. At night, a soft chime sounded when a tired parent opened the door, and a voice in the hall said, "Do you need help?" And the answer was, "Yes, please," and help came. The ID office called at last. The supervisor had signed. Nadia picked up the temporary card with the caseworker at her side, then the permanent one weeks later. She went back to her old employer with the letter and the new ID and deposited the check. The money went to diapers, a small savings envelope, and a warmer coat. She laughed when she tried it on and said, "This feels like walking in a kind hand." Lily grew rounder and smiled the kind of smile that makes a room bigger. He kept his promise to step back from company work and let the cool lead. He still helped with hard calls, but by phone and with a light touch. In the hours he had freed, he sat in the building lobby and listened. He learned which details mattered most: a shelf at the right height, a laundry day chart, a kettle that boiled fast. He met a community elder who joined the oversight group and brought calm to every meeting. He met a neighbor who had worried at first but now brought warm bread once a week. He met a young father who visited the room next door and read a picture book out loud in a voice that made the walls gentle. The pilot gathered numbers without turning people into numbers. Days in shelter. Days in class. Days until a lease. The data began to show a shape. Babies stayed with their parents. Moves to permanent housing happened faster when the first stop was a room like this and not a couch where sleep had to be guarded like treasure. The city watched, not from a distance, but from chairs at the table. A second building offered 2 rooms. A third company called the nonprofit director and asked, "Can we help?" The director said yes, but cleanly, yes to clear roles, yes to steady logs, yes to outside eyes. No to shortcuts. No to noise. 3 months passed, then 4. Nadia finished her training and started part-time hours at a friendly shop that understood morning daycare drop-offs and the surprise hours of motherhood. The nonprofit found a small apartment not far from the clinic. The landlord was cautious until the foundation offered a limited guarantee for the first months and the case manager promised to visit. Nadia signed the lease with both hands on the pen. She cried in the empty kitchen because even empty rooms can feel full when they are yours. She bought one bright towel and hung it in the bathroom like a flag. On moving day, he carried the crib mattress while Nadia carried Lily, who had learned to laugh at boxes and tape. The social worker hugged them at the door and said, "You know the rules now. Keep your own kind rules." Nadia taped the daily plan to the new wall, class days replaced by work days, counseling on Wednesdays after lunch, nurse visits changed to monthly check-ins. She kept the binder from the pilot on the top shelf, not to read every day, but to remember how they had done a hard thing the careful way. He returned to the building and sat with the oversight group. They read the latest report: fewer emergency removals among parents with infants who entered through the pilot, fewer nights spent in waiting rooms, more first leases signed with steady support. The city extended the variance and asked for a plan to make the rooms a regular resource. The board chair called him after the meeting and said, "You kept your side of the line. The company is steady. If you want to step back into daily work, we are aligned." He thanked her and did not answer right away. Sometimes you sit with a good choice before you pick it up. Summer opened its hand. On a warm evening, the nonprofit held a small gathering in the courtyard. There were no microphones, no banners, just folding chairs and lemonade in clear cups. Parents came with strollers and small stories about bus routes and bedtime routines and the exact shade of a rug that hides juice spots. The nurse laughed with the fire lieutenant. The building inspector brought a plant that did not ask for much water. The community elder told a short story about a door that had needed 4 hinges, not 2, and everyone nodded. Nadia arrived with Lily, who now toddled from chair to chair on sturdy legs, stopping to examine laces and smile at hands. The toddler looked at him with great interest, then offered him a cracker as if to say, "You look like someone who needs one." He accepted the cracker with the seriousness it deserved. Nadia stood beside him and watched Lily make a small circle of joy on the concrete. "She thinks the world is friendly," Nadia said. Her voice was soft and amazed. "I want to keep it that way." "You are," he said. He did not say the rest out loud, that the world is not always friendly, but plans and people can make it kinder. He did not need to. It was there in the air between them. They did not make speeches. They did not talk about lessons learned as if life were a slide deck. They talked about real things: how to cook a pot of beans that lasts 3 days, how to ask a landlord for a small repair, how to tell a manager you need to swap a shift without sounding like an apology. They laughed about the door alarm that had sung its soft chime so often that babies in the hallways would lift their heads when they heard it, as if it were a friendly bird. When the sun slid lower, he walked to the edge of the courtyard and watched the building windows catch the light. He thought about the first night on the sidewalk outside the shelter. He thought about the hotel room with the soft mist from the humidifier. He thought about the hearing room and the boardroom and the thin bridge of time between them. He thought about how a person can hold 2 roles at once: father and founder, helper and guardian of a boundary, and not break, if the lines are clear and the goal is clean. He turned back and saw Nadia lift Lily onto her hip. The little girl clapped her hands and looked at the sky as if it was her idea. He smiled. Nadia met his eyes and said, "Thank you," again, but not like a person who owed a debt. More like a person who recognizes a fellow builder. He shook his head a little. "Thank you for walking the hallway," he said. "For turning it into a road." Weeks later, he did return to the company with a quiet plan for growing the work he loved and keeping space for the work he now knew he could not ignore. The pilot stayed with the nonprofit and the city. The oversight group added 2 parents who had lived in the rooms and now had leases of their own. The binder on his desk at home kept a few new pages, not notes on revenue, but notes on radiators, class times, and how kindness shows up best when it's written down clearly. On a shelf in his living room, his son's drawing of a house still hung in a simple frame. The words under it were the same as before, but they rang deeper now. Home is safe. It was not a slogan. It was a job. It was a choice made every day by many hands. and it was a promise he knew how to keep.